everyone. Hi everybody, thank you for joining today. So today we are having Adam Paulden join us. He is with DLAP Entertainment, part of DLAP Entertainment. Fantastic production company that have done shows such as Curtains, The Wedding Singer, Company, Rock of Ages, etc. So I'm just going to wait for him to request to join and we will add him in. So here he is.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, hello, hello.
Hello, hello. Welcome.
There's music in the background there.
I thought I'd bring you into some entrance music.
Very much.
I'm gonna turn it down. Hold on. How you doing?
Very well. It's very hot.
It looks amazing there.
It is boiling. Yeah, in good spirit. In good spirit. How are you?
I'm great. I'm absolutely great. I'm very excited about you joining us today and our conversation we're going to have.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. So for anyone that doesn't know you, we will go straight into your introduction to tell us a little bit about you, about who you are, DLAP Entertainment, and tell us all about you, and then we'll get started on a few questions.
The whole shebang, the whole shebang. Well, yeah, I'm a producer, commercial theatre producer predominantly. Done a little bit of film production and TV production, but mainly a theatre producer. Been doing it for about 10 years now, which at the age of 32 seems a little bit scary, but I left university and just went a little bit berserk and did a bit of work on Skins on Channel 4 and TV and then film, and then I ended up with a producer called Kenny Wax, and we produced Top Hat, and I was general manager of The Play That Goes Wrong and Comedy About a Bank Robbery, lots of different shows that Kenny was very successful in producing. And of course, Six, which everybody knows.
Of course.
Left before Six had happened, but yeah, no, it was an amazing time. And then I joined my business partner, Dan Looney, friend and business partner. We've worked so closely over the past 3-4 years, kind of on all of our shows: Rock of Ages, Wedding Singer, Fame, Cheetah Rivera, Company in the West End. So yeah, it's been a very interesting journey, but that is me in a nutshell, I think.
Amazing. And I mean, you know, the shows that you've been involved with have just done, you know, absolutely fantastic. And it's just, you know, it's such an interesting, you know, producing is such an interesting topic, I think, for, you know, many artists, many performers to find out a little bit of background about how it all evolves, how it gets to, you know, where they come and, you know, see a production. You know, the audience comes to see a production, you know, and the artist is in the production. The background of it is so vast. And it's such an eye-opener to hear, you know, some more information about it, because I think people will be really interested to hear the whole process of things.
Hopefully
we'll answer some questions. I mean, you know, I've come up with a few questions to ask, and I'm sure that, you know, we're going to ping pong off each other and kind of, you know, find out even more that I didn't know about, which is super interesting. So first of all, let's start with, how do you start a show? Where do you get the rights? How do you start? Where does it all begin?
It's a very, very big question in the sense that there's lots of element, but I'll try and break it down, because I think people may have an inkling, having spoken to different people in the industry, but you're right, it's a lot of people behind the scenes and a lot of work that's involved. I always liken it to opening a factory, starting a factory, because you have all your setup and there's a lot of work that goes into that. There's the kind of initial, like the previews, which is the kind of get going mode. Then you're into your running of the factory and what it takes to actually keep a show running, and tours are different to West End, and which is different to Broadway, which is different to international shows. And then you have to close the show sometimes, which is also quite a long process sometimes. So in terms of getting the rights, so the first thing really is just identifying what you want to do. And within that, there's a number of reasons, a number of kind of logic and thinking behind what we want to do and why we want to do it. It's a real mixture. I had an amazing chat recently about, because it's art, it's really art, it's an art form. Yeah. It's also a business, and there's lots of considerations as to how you put the most fantastic piece of art on stage, but also make it viable so that it stays on stage, keeps people in work. So you're not obviously putting a one-off show on and then kind of it'll just, unless you want to do that.
Yeah. A pop-up show.
A pop-up show. A pop-up show. I used to do loads of West End kind of concerts in Freedom and all these different places when I first started, and they were interesting, but they were very much start up and close down quite quickly.
Yeah.
So we identify what we want to do, and there's a number of stages in that. The first thing really is find out if you want to do an existing piece, something that is already around. It might be a TV show you want to do as a player, a musical, or it might be a movie. It might just be an article in the paper that you want to adapt into a show. And there's a few ways of doing it. One is to identify who the owners of whatever you want to do are, as in the underlying, call it the underlying owners. So if someone's written TV script, there could be a number of owners. It could be the writer of the TV script. It could also be the platform, so the network or the BBC, for example, or Netflix. They might co-own it. So we're doing a big musical adaptation on Broadway, which is co-owned by Sony and the writer. So it's identifying where the rights sit. And obviously there's a few different types of rights that you can get. You can get just the stage rights to do something, which is basically they're giving you the exclusive right to put that movie on the stage or that TV show on the stage. It's very rare that a big company like Sony will just give you, hand over everything.
Just hand it over.
Yeah, it's limited rights. And I think for performers, it might be quite interesting in terms of knowing that producers have a lot of control, but not on every project, not all control. It's sometimes the underlying, so it's Sony or the BBC, whoever it is. And I suppose that's kind of a classic rights agreement, which is to option something. So to option something is to pay a certain amount of money for a certain time, and within that certain time you have to trigger the option you have to have produced it within that time. Otherwise the rights go back to Sony or someone else. So that's an option agreement. And I guess there's lots of different types, but just briefly, the other one is a commission. So we would commission a writer to write something brand new. So it's either a writer adapting an underlying work for the stage, or it's them writing something completely new. We just, it comes from an idea. We have a drink at some point and we say, this would be a cool idea. And I think enough people will go and see it to make it commercially viable, but also the most fantastic play or musical, or now we're talking a lot about live streaming. So it's identifying the rights. We go and get the rights. We're quite ballsy in doing that.
And how do you, so say if someone's looking to, start their own project or, etc. How do you go in and find the rights? What's the process of researching that?
So, I mean, sort of Google's your best friend in a weird way.
Yeah, I say that about a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because if you're starting from scratch, you're just hustling, right? So I did that for so many years. And you just dig as to who, and you'll often find, so IMDb will have the production company. I mean, IMDb Pro has more, but if you can't have IMDb Pro, you look on IMDb. There's certain literary agents who look after certain rights to certain titles. So the agency, Casarotto Ramsey, people like that, Curtis Brown. So they might already, you could do an inquiry to see, because on their website you might see that. Sometimes you really don't know. You have to do a lot of scouting around. We have gone, obviously over the years, we've made the relationships with, I call them the owners, the rights owners. And if you often find it's maybe 5 or 6, big companies, Sony, Universal. Now, obviously, every studio has its own theatrical arm.
Yeah.
DreamWorks theatricals, and they're all 20th century theatricals. So what's interesting about that is forming the relationships with the right people, and it is hard. It's hard to do, but often they do attend a lot of workshops and readings, and you can track them down, and you might know someone in the industry who knows them, and often they will listen to you. I mean, not always, because they've got so much on their plate and they're dealing with lots of people. But if your pitch is kind of interesting enough and you've managed to put a package together, because I think a lot of the time people go to them just with an idea, which is cool. But if you do a bit of legwork and kind of approach some creatives, or even do a really cool treatment yourself of how the idea is going to work and why you're right to do the idea and nobody else. They listen to you, and obviously there's a big thing with being young. I mean, I say I'm 32, but I'm seen as young in the industry. But it kind of works in your favour because with you know, I love the veteran producers of this industry. But from what I've found, a lot of these guys, especially in America, love listening to you know, kind of hungry young producers who are really going to work hard and not just kind of option something and then get their team to go and produce it. So it's a bit of hustling. It's a lot of research. You know, you've got to be conscientious and you've got to look far and wide. You know, as I say, who owns the property? If it's on the BBC, for example, look at the credits and see who's involved, and then do a bit more digging. So that's an interesting production company. And often, you know, the exec producer is. I mean, TV is different to film, is different to theatre, but there'll be one or two main lead producers usually. So yeah. And then the other thing is that we are open. We started a company which is basically to accept submissions for almost everything. I'm kind of, you know, digging a hole saying that, but because a lot of work. But so we'll read most things and do a report on it. Look at where it fits with what we're doing, and we have a fund which will basically option a limited amount of projects a year. But it could be anything from a show we see in Edinburgh, like, you know, a famous title that we think might be really cool on stage, and again what we do is we option it, and then we obviously workshop it and develop it. So yeah, that's a new thing that we're coming up with, and I think it will allow more people to get their work, you know, because even absolutely, and loads of performers are. Oh, you've dropped it.
I dropped you. I'm sorry.
We'd finished.
Honestly, the balancing on balancing thing. Oh, it's just horrendous. But okay, hopefully that should be okay.
Without this stand, I'd be useless. But yeah. So yeah, it's as I say, a bit of hustling, and then we're kind of trying this new opportunity just because of that whole thing of it's a very closed book sometimes, and we want people to be able to get their work out there without it costing either them or costing a lot for them, because, you know, there is a bit of risk involved, and we at the very start gathered some money together just to show people what we can do, and obviously it's a risk because you might lose your money, and I say that to everybody, but if you're passionate enough about it and you really want to do a showcase or something, you know, you can either develop it yourself a little bit with some money, or, as I say, hustle and get your idea, your script out there, or come to us, which will be set up in a few months. So we'll release all that information soon, I think.
That is so exciting. That is awesome. So how do you start with the development of the show? Like, from a producer's point, how do you start developing it? Where do you
come in? It's funny, the whole array of, so every project's different. Some need a lot of development, some think they don't need development and do, because but we're always sort of kind of reverse engineering stuff, in that we're looking at the very start, what is the project, but also what could we do with it, so we never go in blind. I mean, sometimes you're just on an organic roll and you think, oh, we did a workshop here, which is cool, but we kind of need to be a bit more sort of sensible about it in a way, because there's real investors' money involved, and they, you know, they don't mind how we do it because they sort of trust how we develop stuff, but we do need to have in mind where's the end goal for the project. So that's kind of that kind of guides how you're going to develop it. So we did a show, The Last King of Scotland, which was a play version of the movie in Sheffield. So what I thought it needed, so there's obviously a book and a famous movie with Forest Whitaker thing, but I optioned the book, which was like the movie but not quite. Some people say better, some people say worse. It was a case of kind of getting it to a point where I could get a regional theatre interested in it. So what I did was got the script, commissioned a script to be written, so the book to be adapted, and then we thought, why don't we do a workshop? And we kind of, or a reading initially, and I thought we want a really good calibre of actors, just to kind of get people in the room, really. So I could invite Sheffield and all these different regional theatres to kind of come and see it, because I knew I wanted to do it outside of town before coming into the West End, because in truth that is where you properly develop something, and you put it in front of an audience and they'll very quickly tell you if it's absolutely rubbish or great. So I did a workshop at RADA. We did a reading at RADA, and they very kindly sort of lent their space to us, which was brilliant, because we used some of their, you know, students and what we were involved. And then we did another one at the National Theatre Studio, which again, with a different cast, and again just gave it a little bit of gravitas and did, and managed to, because I think there's certain partners you can work with to give
Yeah.
something. And not every, I'm very aware that not everyone has the ability to just kind of go to the NT and say, can we do? But actually, as I say, if you go and meet with these people and they're very open to new work and stuff, they do provide spaces for workshopping and things like that. So you've just got to find your way. But in answer to your question, every project has a different development process. So, a Broadway show, I don't know if people might have heard of these things. UK performers might have heard of these things, but you have labs in America.
Yeah.
Labs, you do these 24-hour readings. Am I getting it right? 48-hour reading, whatever it is they do these very almost standardized kind of packages of workshops. So you'll do like a week long, and then you'll do a 4-week lab or whatever with the choreography. So, and every project needs different types of development. What I'm really excited to do with the new thing, the new fund, I keep calling it a fund. It's really a development company, a rights and is kind of just start with just some character work on certain projects, just to see the dynamics. So we're looking at a couple of kind of very famous literary pieces, but before we even begin doing work on the script, I would love to just get a couple of actors in a room to work on the 2 central characters, because I think that will guide. I want to see how the comedy works, and I think that will guide really what we do next with it.
Yeah.
And you need to really think about what a project needs, not what your friends think it needs or everything else. And I know it's exciting to just very quickly get into rehearsals and do that, but the Americans, God bless their souls, are very, very, very good at developing properly. Like,
yeah.
And I know it does cost money, and they have a lot of support. So that is difficult. That is a hard thing in the UK.
Yeah.
People are constantly trying to find producers to fund their workshop and the projects and things like that. So I get that, and that is hard. And we're very lucky to have established relationships over the years with some investors who don't mind putting up some front money just to, properly develop something. And it's hard.
I was going to say, like, that initial support that you get from, an investor, that support to start off with straight away, that they're taking risk as well, but it gives you the platform then to really, have the time that you need to have to develop.
Yeah, absolutely. Because Mormon and all these, they were properly. I mean, I think it took him Lin-Manuel about 10 years to write Hamilton. And they go through so many permutations, and it's kind of it's amazing how a project can look so different at the end to what it started out as. Sometimes I may add, it's a little bit tarnished throughout that process because there's too much kind of overthinking in a weird way.
Yeah.
But what I do love is Lloyd Webber's done this sort of model of the other palace is really or what is the developing it like this is to workshop some of the material downstairs and put it in front of focus groups and audiences and see what it's like. Because as I say, the punter, the audience is the best judge of what and not everyone can agree, but if you get enough people liking it, you've got something.
Yeah.
And then actually produce it upstairs in the main house. So there's a lot of that kind of development with all of his shows, and I think that's brilliant. So yeah, everything.
Is there a time frame that you give yourselves, or that you have to follow the protocols, that there is a time frame, it has to be done specifically?
I think so. Well, so the rights is kind of leading back to the rights. You do have when you option something, you have a term which is a certain time to develop and get the show on. So you are constrained, and that's why we always try and get the longest option we possibly can for the best value price that we can. So if we get, I would 5 years would be brilliant for a musical, for example. It's so nice because you get your pre-production time, figuring out what you need, what actors you need in a room, then you might do a workshop, and then it gives you time. If the workshop didn't really work, back to the drawing board, do another one. I mean, Broadway musicals are a bit different. They can be up to $40 million, like and they have thorough workshopping. I mean, Tootsie apparently took 8 years to get onto the stage. We're a bit quicker than that, but I don't know. When I worked on Top Hat, that was a good 5 years altogether. There's a lot at play in those big titles. Some of the smaller stuff you could get up and on if it's ready to go, and you've already done it at uni, or you've done it and you think, let's try this again. Let's do it in this theatre for one night or two nights. That could be 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You are. There's a little bit of pressure by the term of the rights. But no, I would just tell people not to unnecessarily rush just because they're so desperate to get their show on. Because you'd rather get it right, and
Absolutely.
if you don't get it right the first time, it
It can
can.
hinder.
Yeah, because I think the industry opinion and other people's opinion is that that was, I'm not going to say certain titles, but there are certain titles that they just went big very quick,
Mm-hmm.
one night concert or whatever, and you think, oh God, it didn't show the best of what they can do because it felt like it was very rushed. And
Rushed.
as I say, I'm so aware that money's a massive factor because, but you can, as I said, be resourceful. Your college might lend you a room for a day or something, or, you've got to be resourceful, and you've got to hustle and do deals with people to say, look, if this does go well because you've helped us out at the start, you can be a very small royalty recipient if from the box office, or you could have people might be happy with having their name on the program.
Yeah.
They know they've helped the industry, and we do need help. We always need help. This industry, we need the widest.
We all need to come together. I said it many times, if we all help each other out, all sectors of our industry, especially right now, I feel like everyone needs as much support as possible. So
Absolutely.
definitely. Question for you on the workshop side. Oh, I keep losing you. What a nightmare.
Fine. I've taken the. You don't want me here.
Oh, no, I do want you here. I do want you here. It's just my phone is just annoying me. Okay, so why do you workshop a show? Why is that?
I suppose there's a few reasons. I guess the end result really is to showcase it most of the time. The traditional workshops that you hear of are in and around the West End, and they do it like in certain spaces that we all know, in Durwood and all these places.
Yeah.
You're trying to show what you're trying to present something really at the end, and whether that be to, as I say, regional theatres, other producers who you might want to partner with, because it's hard to do it yourself sometimes. You might want to not the emphasis might not be on showcasing it. It literally might be on workshopping a piece of the score or the script, and you think the script's very strong, but the score's not so good. Let's get some actors in a room and let's play around with it. And I've done workshops like that where we haven't actually showcased anything at the end. We've just gone, okay, this is great. Let's not tell anyone. What we've got is really good.
Yeah.
I always say always video everything, because you do forget. I always think, and obviously you can be in a room and then in hindsight you forget things, or you think something was better than it maybe was, or the other way around. So film everything. But workshopping is important, I think, as a third point, just to get some momentum going. Because if you don't, it's so easy to sit on a project, a show, a musical. Again, maybe the other extreme, to sit on it too long. I think after it's nice to get some momentum going, and you can do that by having a reading or a workshop, even if it's a bunch of your mates who come, find an office space or someone's living room, whatever. Just get some momentum going. Then you've got a video that you shop around, try and do a decent quality video.
Yeah.
But and I think we get a lot of submissions which are just ideas. But if we can be invited to a workshop, obviously we can see something and hear something. And I think people, I love ideas. Ideas are brilliant. But everyone should know you can't copyright an idea.
I would love that.
You can only copyright the expression of an idea. So if you've written a script, that's copyrighted material because you have put your pen to paper. So again, it's showing the copyright. So it's presenting the copyright and saying, this is our script, this is what music we've done. And I think so. It's maybe threefold. One is to showcase. Two is just to do it, to workshop the material. Maybe three is to get some momentum going. Probably a load of reasons that are missing, but that's mainly, why we do it, I think. And to get it to a point where we can actually, as I say, get investment, co-producers, theatres interested,
Yeah.
all
that jazz.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so a question for you regarding the audition process. What is your role? What is your guys' role within the audition process? And how much say do you have on the casting?
I like to just sit there and not say very much until the end. It's funny because I mean every producer differs. My business partner Dan really
Yeah.
creates an actor's point of view, so absolutely loves to be in the room, and is kind of an asset in the room in that sense because I suppose I'm a bit more sort of the business side and don't I mean I was an actor for a very short time, a radio actor, so go figure.
Nice.
Have
It's still an
radio,
actor.
yeah. So and we come from different points of view, but what I would say is, I mean, there's two things. One is that we are thinking commercially about certain roles, obviously,
Yeah.
and I must say we don't we a lot of people. There's a big thing where people say there's so many celebs that are in these things, and why do we cast celebs and all this kind of stuff. And to be honest, we're sort of thinking the other way these days, which is there are only few real celebrities that really sell lots of tickets, and we don't just pepper shows with celebs just because. And it's something we just don't do. We'd rather have and obviously lots of celebs have trained and been great and everything. But so in auditions, I often sit in on those ones, and because you want to know that they can do it,
Yeah.
and you want to know with yourself. I love casting directors are absolutely amazing, and we put a lot of trust in them. But I like to be in the room when, if it's a kind of commercial with a commercial head on, to see, because it's all very well someone a big celebrity casting a big celebrity, but you've got to trust yourself that they can do 8 shows a week and be
Cool.
just the rest of the ensemble, if not better sometimes. So, so with that sense, I'm in the room. But also, I mean, I do absolutely love it. I mean, it's brilliant. We maybe often the panel looks like they're so bored but I think they've had a long day and it's hot and whatever. I think I just absolutely love it. It's so part of the process. It's kind of fundamental to creating, making this cake. We've got all
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
big thing. Um, and in terms of sort of when I'm in the room and the sway that we have with directors and stuff, I mean, it's a really interesting relationship with directors because obviously we employ the director to direct our show,
Yeah.
but and we put a lot of trust in them. And most of the time, I actually kind of go with what they want. But it's very important that we do have some kind of say. If
Yeah.
ultimately we just feel
Say ultimately, if you maybe didn't agree with someone, I mean, how much is that listened to? Is it do you
well,
have a pull?
it's because there's a few like ingredients in that. One is our experience of having worked with certain people, and whether that's good or bad, it's just important to inform if it's a director who hasn't worked with that person or those people, they were
Yeah.
fantastic. Remember, I'll often say this person, it was difficult on that show, but you've got to remember in context is everything. It was a hard part for them. They didn't feel like, whatever it was. So I'm that kind of voice, say, because I've got 10 years sort of knowing a lot of people in the industry.
Yeah.
Just and you can't generalize, and people can people can change as well if someone's had a bad start, for example, or had a bad show, just for whatever reason, they might have been going through a bad time.
Yeah.
I will be the one to actually say, this person's come in, and then someone might say, "Oh, I heard they weren't great on that
Yeah.
particular tour," and I'll go, "Yeah, I know, but blah 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 blah
But
blah."
you know the background of it.
Sometimes, not
Mhm.
always. But as I say, we put a lot of trust in the casting team and everyone. I mean, musical supervisor who is depending on who you're working with. I mean, they're brilliant in the room. I know they can be really scary and get people to sing higher than they've ever sung before. But it it makes the dynamic of the room really interesting to have those people. And we really do try and not have too many people in the room because you're walking in and it's like
Yeah.
and I used to audition as well. It's not great, but yeah, I think so. I try not to be in the room that much, but I think there's a number of reasons why I might be, at certain times, especially in finals. It's not that we would change anything in finals as to what people have already kind of getting their opinions about who they might want to go with.
Yeah.
But as we're risking a lot of money on the shows, and we just want to get it right. We want to make sure the chemistry's right. And by the way, we don't always get it right, so
And it's all learning, isn't it? It's a process. It is it is that kind of process you know, that it needs to all come together. What is the next one I have here? Okay, so can we talk about the preview period of the show?
Yeah, as in
And do critics matter within that preview of the show?
I think, well, do critics matter is a whole debate.
They matter a lot.
No, I actually love. I did a little course in my English degree. I did a course on theatre critics, bizarrely, and actually they've played an immensely important role over the years and in the history of theatre in Britain and beyond. So for us, obviously, the preview period. I mean, we need it to just make sure the show is what we want it to be when we show it to the wider public and everything. And sometimes we won't invite critics in during the preview period. Sometimes we do want them there to boost the show. If it's a show we've done again, you know, we've done like the second, third time, we don't always need the reviews, so we don't always invite the critics to come. But no, I don't. I think it might be what you call a symbiotic relationship in some way. For some shows, I personally feel plays need critics a bit more than musicals sometimes, unless it's a brand new musical in the West End. But in terms of new plays, it can make a play fly or die. This is a kind of broad view, but a musical, and some plays, if they're populist enough, your audience will tell you whether, as I say, will tell you whether it's good or not. And I think Mamma Mia got terrible reviews. There's definitely examples of shows that in the previews have got horrendous reviews. Yeah. There is a funny story about Mamma Mia, which is that I think they were doing some scenes in earnest, like really seriously, and all the reviewers were just absolutely laughing their heads off. They thought it was ridiculous. And then they just went with the comedy then. They just said, oh, we'll just play it for the comedy. But yeah, I think the preview period is important for us in terms of work, you know, getting running.
Yeah.
It's important for the actors, performers, just to kind of bed it in. I say critics are important at times. Very important for some shows. Plays specific, you know, if you want a West End transfer, sometimes it plays a huge part. And if you've done a regional show and in terms of getting good reviews or not, it can play a part in the kind of longevity of a show. So we do sometimes rely on critics as well. But yeah, previews are really handy. Obviously, I think they have a lot longer preview periods on Broadway, but in the UK. So and they really understand that. They really understand it. Also gets a chance to, as I say, get the hype going, because often cheaper tickets, you can get people in and get an audience, you know, moving, getting the hype moving, and so I think it's important. I think previews are important.
Definitely to get the hype up for sure. Love a good preview. In your opinion, how do you feel about the future of theatre production at the moment with what's going on?
Well, I'm sort of always a voice of positivity in a weird way. You know, we're so dynamic as theatre creators, just creative people in general. We're all
people.
Show. Oh, oh God, maybe we should sing that in full at the end of the thing. I think we're in this amazing new wave. I mean, everyone can see it. It's blatantly obvious that the online thing is becoming a thing. Being very dynamic in how we're approaching it, because you always want the live elements to be there, so live theatre, and even if that's, you know, means a show which has been filmed and then is streamed, which we do, or it's a show which is streamed live, so it's literally being filmed live and streamed out. You know, I always say I don't think it distracts. I don't think it takes away from the live experience. I think it hypes people up to want to go and see the live show. So I absolutely think we'll come back. I don't know when. No, everyone's sort of guessing. Obviously, there are a lot of people at the top of the industry who are kind of game changers in when that will all happen, because you've got to think about the financial side and what support they need. Is it, you know, because they do. It trickles down from the top. If they feel like they can't do it, they can't do it, then it might be a bit of a longer process. But we'll absolutely be back. And I think people, you know, whether it's getting into rehearsals first. I know that I read UK TV production studios are opening again with certain social distancing measures and things. But yeah, we'll be rehearsing, we'll be workshopping when we can, as soon as we can. In terms of the future, I think that's in kind of the immediate future, in the sense that we need to be doing more online things having a presence. I think there's this amazing cross-pollination happening with TV, film, podcasts, theatre. You know, theatre shows are being made into Netflix shows. So, you know, the prime example is Fleabag.
Yeah.
It's a play. So I think what's amazing is content and the fluidity of content. And I say the cross-pollination. So we're looking at, and, you know, for many years now, my business partner always says, it's the sort of the new literature of this generation is movies rather than books, and so there's obviously a lot of movie adaptation, always. But we're looking at podcasts now. We're looking at you know, even you start something as a cast recording, and we can develop it that way. TV projects and fluidity with that. So maybe looking at it, thinking about it as a show first, but always having in mind the journey of the show. That we might want this to be a film one day. We might want this to be a live streamed event that turns into a Broadway musical, and we're all working on something in LA on that note, which I can't say what it is, but it will be the first of its kind. And I think it's important to just understand sort of people love content, and everyone's seen it with Netflix and Amazon, and theatre is just as important in that.
Absolutely.
And we're not just an archaic industry that's kind of small comparatively. We are small comparatively, but it's growing and growing. And if you look at international theatre, we tour lots of shows internationally. Obviously, at the moment, it's very difficult, but South Korea's reopened the theatres with social distancing measures. So we always have in mind the lifespan of a show, and that is to get it cross-platform, not just on the stage, and get it out internationally as well, because that old thought process of West End show, Broadway, just West End and Broadway. There's a whole load of other cities out there that have a lot of theatres. I mean, China's got so many theatres, and loads of potential to network and workshop. I mean, America's amazing because America has got all these theatres that have these programs, and they can develop shows, and you know, it is pretty impressive stuff. Yeah, that's roughly where I kind of see it going. It's sort of, you know,
I think I'm excited. I'm excited about the future of theatre. I think, you know, having this time now, I think it's making people use so much more of their, you know, idea process of how to strengthen, you know, their own industry. And I really do feel like
we all feel, don't we, very much in this industry, that we provide a real service. Because I think, I mean, you've just got to speak to, like, you know, when we tour a show and I go up to wherever, Stoke or wherever, and you're just listening to like the audience members, and it's on the most heartwarming thing when they say, you know, oh, it's very, I'm so glad I came out tonight, and that kind of thing. And it just makes people, you know, I don't know if you had it, but when I was a kid watching my dad bizarrely in amateur shows, it was kind of that feeling in your chest, you know, when the orchestra starts, and that you never want to lose. And for people, I mean, maybe we're a bit jaded because we've seen some shows, but you know, you remember people only come to the theatre maybe in the regions. They have say they've got a family and they have a budget to go once every couple of months. You know, that feeling that we had, which is why we wanted to get into the industry. I think they get that if it's a good show. I think they get that when they go into the show. It's that.
I do hope, though, you know, that within, you know, when the future happens and we all, you know, kind of get back into theatre, I hope that the ticket sales can drop a little bit, so much more people can prices can drop. So, you know, so because it's an education, you know, and it's an expensive education.
It's getting more price. It's all linked to theatre rent prices, and I think they feel, and not blaming theatre owners and things. I think in the foreseeable future we'll have a space and operate a kind of theatre space. There's a lot involved, and obviously the current socio-political economic climate. I think, you know, we'll see what happens with theatre rents. Basically, I know Broadway, there's big talks at the moment about, you know, those ticket prices are kind of just unaffordable for many people, and that's good. What I think this has done, what I think the whole pandemic has done for this industry anyway, has just leveled the playing field, so that, as you say, ticket prices, it's going to kind of, you know, it's done this. We'll see what happens, but we're very much
so.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's accessibility. You know, there's an amazing charity Mousetrap which gets people into theatre and offers really cheap tickets. Um, and we want to be always wary of that. People that can't afford to come, because it absolutely outprices some people. And you know, you've got to be reasonable with what you're charging, but also make it viable to be able to keep the show going. So yeah, I think some people don't. It's a complicated. You know, if you were to know every single budget line and how it all works, that's another thing. But there's a reason why people charge the prices they do, and yes, it gets competitive because, and maybe that's where it goes a little bit skewed. If you have a very successful show, the thinking maybe is that you can basically charge what you want because people will buy. But I don't think. I think that you know that you kind of diminish that idea of getting people into theatre, making it accessible. But again, some of those big shows do have that, you know, day tickets and things like that, day seats, and
Yeah.
but I also hope we can get this. I mean, my old boss Kenny, who's now the chairman of Society of London Theatre, basically said in his speech at the Olivier Awards he was talking about making it more accessible. So if it's coming from the top like that, I really
From the
hope.
top, yeah, yeah, really hope that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Going back to the celebrity point that you mentioned before, do you think celebrities, I mean, what is the pull of a celebrity in the show?
Well, firstly, we've sort of, I think maybe hinted at it before, we've come to the conclusion, having done it a lot and worked with lots of different people, we think celebrity is good to an extent and in a certain context. So, as I say, we don't just populate shows with celebrities just because. There are certain people who really pull a big crowd, but I would always add the caveat that they have to be the right person in the right role. So, you know, we had fantastic Jason Manford was just so right for that role, brilliant. And I just think, you know, certain people, yeah, certain people, you know, you can. There's this interesting thing which is like called the curiosity factor, which is seeing someone who's never done that role, like a big celebrity, do that role, and then people go to, I wonder what they'll be like doing that. But the problem is they've got to be good. There was a very famous LA A-lister who a producer brought over and in a play and just kept forgetting the lines and everything like that. I'm not mentioning any names, but
Names.
you know, there's a real risk with with casting a celebrity. So I think my point is that we don't just do it kind of willy nilly. We sort of really think about because we absolutely need to sell tickets to keep a show going. The fundamental part of the
and you need to make sure that that celebrity obviously, you know, has the stamina the same as the other other ensemble, other cast members that can hold 8 shows a week, you know, so they have to
that's such a salient point. I think if they can't, you've got to question why you put them in the show, because you know these performers train so hard. I am totally sensitive of that thing of just casting for casting a celebrity just for the sake of it.
Just cause,
I think it's going to, but they've got to be able to do the 8, the 8 shows a week or whatever you've got them to do. Got to be on the same par as everybody, if not better in that role. You know, it's because the audience. I always take it back to the audience. They're not stupid. I think. Can I say this particular musical? There's a very famous populist ITV show that was then made into a stage show. That, all right, so you go and watch your favorite celebrities on stage, but that's what that show was kind of about, because it was the TV show on stage.
Yeah,
you're just plonking a load of celebs in a new musical because you're worried about selling tickets. I mean, again, it has to be the right celeb because they sell tickets. I can tell you that, or not for the right demographic that you think they might do, which is really interesting. There's a whole science in that. I think there's a whole, and there's if you do some data analysis of that person in that show, in that title, and it's fascinating stuff. But yeah, I think they're important. And we love them and everything, and they are very important to certain shows to get the exposure.
Yeah.
But people should be rest assured. Performers should be rest assured that we don't simply,
just throw anyone in.
Because it just we would feel like we're not doing the whole thing justice. We want the best people, absolutely. And then obviously, you know, so some people become celebrities. So some West End stars that we can become through certain shows and certain roles, just amazing, and everyone kind of, you know, everyone's like, wow, this person is now on the map.
Yeah.
You know, so
Great. Celebrities. How do you get investment for a show?
well, that's the big question, isn't
How
it?
do you actually get the investment?
Well, there's a number. So I think the first thing people have got to know is that there are people out there, believe it or not, that have a lot of money or have a little bit of money, disposable money, I suppose I should say, or not disposable money that they does mean something to them, but they are very supportive of the industry. That the key is that, you know, it's not, well, our side, the commercial side of the industry obviously isn't subsidised, so we do rely on private investment. And there are people out there who support the arts, absolutely. Obviously, savvy investors, they want to make their money back, and
Yeah.
you know, it's a very risky industry to invest in. But the highs are high and the lows are low. You know, some shows lose all the money, some shows break even, make a little bit of money. Some shows can do amazing, and I think for a lot of them, you know, the hundreds of investors I've spoken to over the years, um, they seem to kind of get the grasp that they might be in it for the one that does do very well, and then it doesn't matter what else they invested and lost the money on. It's all about that one. And you
Well,
know, but there's so many of my investors that have kicked themselves for not getting involved in certain shows that they, you know, in
yeah.
hindsight, think. But how do you do it? Well, there's a lot of networking. I think don't, you know, there's a fine line between bombarding someone and kind of, um, you know, approaching them and saying, I'd love to talk about this opportunity. Obviously, with us, we can say we've got a track record and things like that. Even if you haven't got a track record, you just hustle and hustle. And whether it's, I mean, I try to not get family involved unless they really just want to, and they know they're going to lose all their money. Uh,
But anyone can invest, right?
well,
Anyone.
you do have to be a high net worth individual, or there's two kind of qualifications really, because it's, you know, it's an actual investment in a show. So there's two bits of paper you'll be given, and you have to sign either one of them, and you need to qualify for it. But essentially, if you have the money to invest, you're probably going to fall within one of those brackets. And so we do. It's a combination of people from, believe it or not, all industries. I mean, I've people in property, people who are theatre producers, but I think theatre producers themselves, unless they've done very well on certain titles, they tend not to invest in other people's, or maybe minor in a minor way. Some, if they're co-producing, as in they get a slice of the actual profits. If they're actually co-producing, they'll invest, and they have the money to do it. A co-producer can invest. So you could approach different producers, you know, for investment, but in exchange for being a full co-producer with the billing, and you're included in the budget with that, and you're including the profit share. So yeah, I think certain investors, as I say, are more savvy than others. Others kind of just give you their money and want to see what happens, like a bit of a horse bet.
Yeah.
Others are very savvy on the figures, hot on the figures. You need to know what you're talking about. I wouldn't approach an investor unless I knew what, for example, theatre tax relief is, and how to, you know. I think there's lots of people who trip up on if they want to get into producing, they do the little things they trip up on. I mean, I've seen people go, you know, if you make £20 a night, like 5,000 tickets, that's da da da. And I go, well, you've got your VAT, you've got your commission,
Got tax on top of that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Then by the time, so you're actually making nothing.
Yeah.
But so yeah, just be clued up on it to an extent. And I suppose, how do you get clued up on it? I suppose ask around, bombard producers a little bit. They'll always give you a free bit of information sometimes.
Just research, like
And
research. It's like anything, right?
there's a lot out there. There was a book, how to be a producer. I can't remember. It was a while ago, and we were doing. There's also the but yeah, look at books on it. But there is the brilliant Salt new producers scheme. Can't even remember the name of it. It's gone from my head. Dan Looney will be shouting that at me. I can't remember what it's called. But new producer scheme. Yeah, so we did that because they do teach you you know, they go through royalties and how to, what kind of budget you need for a show, and what the running costs are for a show, and how much ticket income you get. But it's a real there's a lot of knowledge.
Yeah.
But I think to get started, you don't need everything. You just need to know the basics, really. But yeah, as I say, you know, and here's the other thing on investors is that rich people do tend to know other rich people sometimes. So if you've had a good experience with an investor, you know, and you say, do you mind introducing me to your sort of wider network? Then they often will. The other thing is things like LinkedIn are good, but you don't want to, you can't do it in a sort of, you know, as I say, unsolicited, bombarding way. There's got to be a link there. You've got to be a mutual connection or something, and just sort of, you know, you need to make the familiar bonds with people. But it is kind of what circles you know, who you're networking with. If you're a SALT member, a UK theatre member, there are lists, there are angel investor lists that they have, people who are interested, who you can go to, but we don't all, you know, not everyone has that. So yeah, you know, hustle, network, is that everything? When you're starting a business, you've got to just know your stuff and show people that you are serious about making their money, making it work. And if you're not making the money, at least you're trying your damn hardest to do it.
Trying hardest, yeah. And you know, yeah, it's the same thing, you know, from my side as an agent, you know, the hustling that we have to do for our clients, you know, not just submitting on Spotlight, you know, it's about calling up, you know, everyone and anyone to get, you know, our clients in the room. So it's the same kind of thing. You just have to, like go in on it.
You just go for it. And there's a way of doing things, isn't it? I think
absolutely
there is a fine line. You can always practice what is, you know, or write an email out and then look at it again and go, is that too pushy? If I was reading that for the first time, is it too pushy? Is it, you know, and obviously you can't always get it right, but it seems to have worked so far with the way that I've done it in pitching it as, you know, love to chat about this and laying out the kind of salient, significant points, headline points about the opportunity, which, you know, and you don't have to go into all the financials, but it's like, this is where we do this. But it is
straight away.
Yeah, so they can, because you never want to come, you know, someone to come back and go, hang on, what are you asking me? Yeah, and how much is it? So you want 5 million? No, the 5 million is the thing. No, so it has to be total clarity, and it's attention to detail, like attention to, don't just rush off an email, reread it, and you know, honestly, the best thing you can do is just, because then you get yourself in trouble, especially if you've overpromised something.
Yeah,
you've got to make sure that nobody can go, you know, in that email at the start, you did say that we were going to get at least 50% return, you know, all that kind of stuff. So everything's a projection and an illustration.
Nothing. Read it like 5 times before you send it.
Too bloody right.
Yeah, check. Okay, and going back to one more about the ideas of people coming to you with an idea. Can anyone come to you with an idea? This is what you were talking about right at the start with what you were gonna, you know, start doing for people to approach you with new ideas. Me personally?
Not personally. Yeah, no, well, yeah, I mean, essentially, so we are setting up this new company, and I'm not going to give any details yet, but there'll be a submissions thing where you can pitch your idea. All I would say is, you know, have as much material as you can to show us, obviously, but also just absolutely know where the rights sit at the start. So we're not doing all that work. So, you know, come to us and say, I've done an adaptation of this brilliant comedy from TV that and then we find out we can't do anything with it because that person actually owns the right. You might have done an adaptation, brilliant, but that person still owns the right. That person submitting it needs to have gone to the person, got the rights before they come to us, or a brand new thing that you don't need rights, as I say. But yeah, they can absolutely do that. And if you look at the DLAP social, which will be starting up pretty soon, we'll advertise that particular thing. Obviously, I think the hard thing is that, you know, we are also, I think, like everyone, producers can be very busy at times. I mean, who knows what's going on at the moment with everybody? And so I think you know, there's so many things that come through, obviously, like you guys. I mean, everyone gets into that position, but we won't say no to it if it's sort of submitted through that thing. We won't, and we're not kind of being bombarded on Instagram and Facebook and all that kind. I just have to say, because it's a great way of getting to people, but it does occasionally people go, oh god, they're bloody Facebooking me now, trying to get this, which is cool. Has been done before.
There's guts, right? But like sometimes you're like, oh.
Yeah, there's guts there. But look, there's no harm in sending an email with everything attached really nicely and saying, and you know, as I say, not too pushy and not too kind of. I love all your work. I love everything DLAP's done. I just love. I think you'd be the perfect match for my project. Yeah, we're business people as well. Even if you don't love us, it's fine. Sometimes we'll come to a deal about certain projects and stuff. So, yes, you can. So in principle, yeah, absolutely. We'll launch the details of this new thing. And I think that's the best way to do it, because it all gets logged properly, and we go through everything rather than it getting lost in our inboxes and stuff. I'll acknowledge it is hard. There's a lot of work out there. It's like, and so if you look at the music industry and things like that, a lot of people have just put themselves out there anyway. There's on YouTube or whatever, or Vimeo, I don't actually watch it, but there's a TV show, High Maintenance, which people keep telling me about, which it's a New York thing, but basically they did it as a YouTube. They shot it themselves and just did it on. No, sorry, they uploaded it to Vimeo. Then Vimeo got wind of it because it was getting hits or something. I'm not a technical, I don't know. But Vimeo then picked it up, and now it's on like Hulu or HBO. Now it's on HBO because the people got it out there in some way themselves. And if you're projecting stuff out there, we have a better chance of seeing it sometimes as well. Or if it's got a hype, we might be like,
social media is really important on that level.
Massive, yeah, it is. Especially if you could, to get your point across, to get your material across. Sometimes the only real way of doing it is filming a couple of actors and doing something. It's like because it lives on stage, really. Obviously, brilliant, and we always think, well, the script is going to come alive, but if you think maybe there's some added material that you could showcase, even one song, I wouldn't send sometimes I'd send a whole album, but maybe make sure you're completely happy. Because often I get things which are like, 5 of the songs are finished, the others are not great, but I just put them in there anyway because it's all right, but I'd rather just hear the 5 best songs. So yeah, absolutely. So yeah, come to us. I think, as I say, DLAP Social will be projecting that, and then just as the final thing. There are projects in some of these theatres, like writers' rooms and things like that, where you might be able to showcase your musical, Beam Festival, New Musical Theatre. If you're into plays, the Royal Court has a writing course and things like that, or and people get picked up from that and stuff. And so I think just do your research as to where the open opportunities to submit your work. And the hardest thing, obviously, and I've been there myself, is that you don't often, you might just get generic knockbacks all the time.
But that's fine, And, if you're in this industry, that the knockbacks are going to be there pretty much, a lot more than the yeses.
Yeah.
But if you believe in something, if you believe in a project that much, then hopefully it will happen for you. And it's amazing that you're giving these people the platform. We've got 1 second to go. I'm going to say thank you so much. And I will speak to you soon.
Take care. Enjoy the sun.
Thank you so much for today.
Bye. Speak to you later.
Bye.